change is never going to be instant. And this is something we really need to understand, not only if we're trying to generate change in our communities or the collective world around us, but also for our personal growth and leadership development. And so in this video, I'm going to share some of the ways that I continue to run into barriers to my own change based on emotional patterns or blocks that I personally experience. So I invite you to stay with me for that. My name is Danielle. My mission is to help people deepen their connections to self, to others, and to the environment. And all of this is because I truly believe that it is through these connections that we can drive forward the change that we need to see on this collective level. Because there's no arguing that we do need to see change. A lot of people are unhappy with what's going on right now. A lot of us have a vision for a brighter world, and my goal, my mission, is to give you the tools to do that. So stay with me for a bit and let's talk about it. I truly, truly believe that we cannot be leaders. And leaders is, in this context, it's not one person's responsible for everything. I truly believe that every single person in every single role, in every single capacity, has the potential for leadership within them already. And regardless of whether you're a boss or maybe a grunt employee, there will be times where you are called to show up in a leadership capacity. So it doesn't matter if you have no intention of ever running a company or running for office or even being the head of a family. Your leadership capacity matters. And doing the work to show up with integrity and show up in a way that is aligned with your values is going to matter regardless of what role you do or do not have. This is something that took me a long time to learn, honestly. I thought for a long time that I had no desire whatsoever to take on any kind of leadership role because it's a lot of responsibility, because I doubted my own capacity to be a leader, because I didn't want to be put in positions where I could fail not just myself, but other people. And when I started talking about these blocks to personal growth, that was a big one. Because if I was not comfortable taking on greater responsibility, I was actually holding myself back from situations where I could learn incredible lessons about myself, about other people, and about how I can better support the world that we live in, the changes that I want to see in the world. So that is the first thing I want to acknowledge here, is that if you're watching this and you're like, oh, I could never be a leader, that alone is holding you back from your potential. You, again, don't need to be a leader in any official sense to develop this capacity. And the fact of the matter is developing our leadership capacity, developing the skills to show up with integrity, to show up strategically, to show up consistently, to listen to other people, and to use broad perspectives, diverse perspectives to inform your course of action is going to help you personally just as much as it's going to serve others and the collective that we live in. And I think this is something we tend to lose sight of with personal development, with the growth mindset, the life coaching pathway. Very, very often we focus on it from that individual perspective. We hold on to this idea that we're all separate, that pouring into ourselves and our growth is going to help us, yes, but that we don't also, as we grow, as we develop, as we expand, we don't also have responsibility towards other people, towards our communities, towards our families, towards the society that we live in. And the truth is, we do. We have responsibility to the connections that we are a part of. And even when we want to escape these connections and this responsibility, we cannot. Because we cannot survive. We cannot thrive. We cannot exist in isolation. It's impossible. We're always relying on other people who grow our food, people who transport our food, people who build our houses, people who run the utilities that allow us to heat our homes or cool them in the summer. We've been taught by incredible teachers and maybe our families. We've been cared for. We have doctors and nurses there to support us when we're injured, when we're sick, when we're at our most vulnerable places, spaces. We gain knowledge through our interactions and wisdom through our interactions with other people. We do not exist in isolation. And so when we go through the process of developing the skills for emotional regulation, the skills for conflict resolution, the skills for critical thinking or strategic planning, it is our responsibility as someone who is a part of these connections in the world to show up in integrity, in humility, with the skills and capacity that we've been developing. Because if we're just developing that capacity and those skills for ourselves in isolation, we're also never really going to get the fulfillment and the true reward that comes with doing that work. And I don't mean reward as in, oh, because of all this, you're going to get a better position at work. I mean reward as in you get to see the impact you make for other people. You get to deepen your connections. You get to show up with more bravery and compassion in a world that can be so overwhelming and that is consistently trying to push us into isolation, into numbness, and into apathy. When you are doing this personal growth or leadership development work, you are giving yourselves the tools to be present in a new way, in a way that actually shapes the changes that we're going through collectively. And again, these are all lessons I've had to learn intimately because really, I feel, most of us are consistently growing and changing throughout our lives. I don't really think we can get away from it. But I consciously started choosing my own personal growth and personal development and career growth and career development at the same time. And I started that choice in isolation. I started it after ending a relationship. I started it after moving away from the city I was living in. And I have had to face the fact that my growth, my dreams, my vision cannot continue if I do not overcome the fear that I've held on to of being visible, of connecting more deeply with others, of subjecting myself to community and to service. Because there's a scary thing about showing up in any sort of visible role. And it is that you're going to face criticism. You're going to encounter people who mirror back parts of yourself that you were not ready to face. You're going to be asked to sit with discomfort and emotions and challenges that you did not have to sit with before and that you would probably never have to sit with if you stay isolated. I am not going to lie and say that this kind of work and this kind of connection and this kind of community building is easy. it's not meant to just be easy, because our continued growth and development and learning comes when we put ourselves in situations that ask us to strengthen these muscles and these skills that we're developing. And that is exactly how we end up at the end of our lives as the person we actually want to be. And I can say a lot of this. I can say it, I can preach it, and I want to acknowledge that this, what I'm sharing today, what I'm sharing with anybody watching this video, is that this is a message I need to hear consistently too. Because for a long time, I prioritized comfort in my life. Even in the middle of this growth journey and this leadership development of learning all these new skills, a lot of it was so I could bring myself back into regulation, into a grounded state, into a feeling of comfort. But balance is needed here. I'm not saying we should never be comfortable or have comfort in our lives. But over time, my practice of finding comfort started to affirm a belief. And again, a belief is not a reality. It started to affirm a belief or a story or a thought that discomfort was unsafe. And to bring balance back into my life, I needed to practice putting myself in positions where I was uncomfortable. I needed to practice going and talking to people again. I needed to practice talking about my business. I needed to be honest about the fears that were holding me back from the things that I said I wanted to do. I needed to be honest about why I wasn't being consistent with things like my writing. I needed to be honest about where I still lacked clarity, and where that lack of clarity was actually a distrust in my own vision and my own values and what I wanted vibrant systems to be. I recorded a video maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago now that really talked about how vibrant systems has been an ongoing journey, yes, but it's been one that's experienced lots of doubt and lots of temptation to just quit, to do something easier, to change my focus, or to go and apply for a job where I was just told what was next, what to do, what to care about, how to move forward, what was expected of me. Because as a business owner, as someone who is self-employed, as someone who is trying to build something from a foundation that's never existed before, there isn't anybody to tell me what to do. There is no one to tell me the exact lessons I needed to learn. I needed to do that work. And yes, there are tools that could help me do that work. But at the end of the day, if I did not actually practice the lessons I was perceiving or confront the fears that I had by doing the things I was scared of, I never would have kept going. I would have given up a long, long time ago. And the reason I share this is because you don't need a business owner. No, you don't need to be a business owner. You don't need to be a business owner to experience this kind of cycle. This might show up in your relationships. For myself, I'm single right now, and the reason I share that is because, I told myself for a long time that I'm single because I want to be a strong, independent woman, right? There's a lot of ways I can justify my choice to not go out and date right now. And I could justify it in a way where nobody really would argue with me. But what I've realized recently is that for me, it's rather that I'm scared that all the personal growth and development that I've done hasn't actually prepared me to have a relationship where I'm not overperforming to my own detriment, where I'm choosing people because the care they need or that I perceive they need is actually just something I want to do to get validation for myself. Because these were all patterns that existed in my past relationships. And talking about relationships in this way, again, weird for a business owner to do, right? But the world's complex, all these systems are connected, all these connections inform how we move into the next thing. And this just goes to show that my fear that I hold around relationships isn't going to disappear if I continue to isolate myself from opportunities to actually practice the lessons I've been learning. Yes, meeting new people, going on dates, building relationships, staying consistent in a relationship, all of that is going to come with its own lessons and its own challenges, its own difficulties, and its own discomfort. But I'm never going to know if I can do that if I continually isolate myself, right? And again, that's just another example of how we're called into connection with other people. If we want to actually become the person we want to become, if we actually want to do the things that we say we want to do, if we want to be the person we want to be on our deathbed, then we need to put ourselves into situations where we get to practice what it takes to be that person. And in this video, it is personal. These are, I'm not sugarcoating aspects of my life. Yes, I'm not sharing everything, but these are personal patterns, and they're personal patterns that I know I don't hold alone, because there's countless other people in the world, and you probably have resonated with these patterns on some level, or at the very least, you're resonating with the fact that it is cyclical, and it is hard, and it does take commitment to do this. One of the things that I would like to offer you, if you're still with me, and if you are, I really appreciate it. I would love to hear your comments, your thoughts about this video below. I would love to see if you subscribe. That would be fantastic, but of course, no pressure. In this, I would like to offer you the truth that we can sit with our emotions. We can feel the fear. We can feel the shame. We can feel anger, frustration, grief. We can feel those things without listening to the stories that tend to pop up at the same time. In the context of relationships, for example, I realized that I have been single for 3 years, 2 years now? 2 years, I think. Yeah. I've been single for 2 years, and for me, that is the longest I've been single since I turned 18. And I realized that I was starting to feel shame about that fact. I was starting to tell myself stories that, oh, it's because I'll never be ready for a relationship, or it's because people aren't actually wanting to build a relationship with me, or people are going to see how long I've been single and start to judge who I am as a person and what that must mean about me. Now, those stories, they're just stories. They're just beliefs. They're just thoughts. And you might be watching this and you're like, yeah, no, actually, I do think that. Your thoughts are also just thoughts. What I had to do when I recognized these stories, when I recognized these thoughts, is I had to sit with the shame, the doubt, the fear in my body, how it existed in my body, and breathe into that without entertaining the thoughts. That can be very, very difficult. And that is why I offer tools like guided meditations to help us better build that capacity to separate our body from our thoughts, to quiet our mind. Because when we can quiet our mind, we build up a capacity to see what beliefs or stories or thoughts are actually keeping us stuck. Because if I actually believe those stories, I'm never going to feel comfortable dating again, for example. Or if I believe the stories or thoughts that crop up around my business, I'm never going to keep going. I'm never going to stay committed to my vision and my dream. I'm never going to believe that how I show up in the world is actually going to make a difference when I have physical evidence based on my actions that it does make a difference. That when I show up for what I believe in, when I go and, earlier in January, gosh, that was so long ago, when I went in January and did a demonstration for something I cared about, and as part of that demonstration, collected food for the food bank, I made an impact in people's lives by that food I donated, by the people I talked to, by the neighbors I met doing that demonstration. And it was terrifying to do. It frightened me. I had all these thoughts going on that people wouldn't care, people wouldn't show up, people might even attack me for showing up for what I believe in. And that wasn't the case. We only get the truth about what we're capable of and how strong we actually are when we face our fears and act rather than sitting in isolation and letting our thoughts control everything. Now, the really important thing is, like I said, this is about personal growth, personal development, leadership development. All of this is stuff that helps me show up better as a community mentor. It helps me develop insight or questions to support my clients in how they're growing, what their vision is, what they're developing. Importantly, though, these same lessons and practices, yes, they are applied in different ways, but they are the same lessons and practices that we need when we're conducting, I don't like that word, when we are inviting change into our communities or our organizations, our towns, or again, if we're trying to drive change in the collective, we're going to need these same kind of skills. One of the big reasons that I'm sharing personal videos like these on a professional account as a business owner is because the personal and the professional are never really separate. One will always inform the other. And in fact, they're always intertwined. They're braided. They're connected. And these are the kinds of connections that I bring awareness to as a community mentor, as someone who advocates for people-first change management. Because we are people. we're personal, we're professional. We have our casual hobbies and we have our jobs, we have our communities, and we have our internal lives. And they are never really separate. Making space to show up vulnerably in this way, here today with people like you, is my way of demonstrating that these connections are not isolated. And yeah, I felt a lot of discomfort and, oh, no, you shouldn't talk about that when I was going into the relationship conversation. But yes, in that context, I was talking about romantic relationships, but it is true for friendships, work partnerships, and for just our community relationships too. Because all of them start with being able to talk to someone, being able to see through differences, being able to navigate conflict, being able to recognize another person's strength and sovereignty and choose who we deepen that relationship with. The personal, the professional are never disconnected. The individual and the collective are never disconnected. And that is exactly why I offer multiple pathways into working with me. Yes, you can sit and watch these videos, comment, like, subscribe, let me know what your thoughts are. It means so much to me to have your engagement, to have your attention, even for just these few moments. But I also offer workbooks, like my value identification and exploration workbook, for people who are ready to actually explore who they want to be in their life, what values they want to inform their actions. I offer a practice in being, which just this June is a free 4-week cohort about how change moves through our lives personally and collectively. What are the barriers? What are the perspective shifts? What are the actions we need to take? How do we be brave in those actions? And how does change move through life? If you're interested in signing up for that, that is down below in the show notes. And if you are at a point where you're part of a community, you're part of a collective, you're part of an organization, and you want to bring in a more relational, people-first approach to change management, that is exactly what I offer in my community mentorship program, where we can partner together and I can bring in this perspective of values and connection and the difficulties that come with change, but the value that also comes with change. I'll also throw that link in the show notes. Once again, thank you so much for sitting with me today. Thank you for listening to my story. It does mean so much to me. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment. And if you want to see more leadership development, personal growth, change management content like this, please subscribe. I do appreciate it so much. My name is Danielle Hauk. My mission is to help deepen the connections to self, to others, and to the environment. Let's make your story a vibrant one.